Welcome to the Hodja on Architecture podcast, Vernacular Architecture Beyond Earth, Chapter 4, Culture Forming Design in Space. If the economy taught us how to build, culture teaches us why we build. In the previous episode, we saw that resources and production shape architecture's metabolism. Now we ask how shared labor becomes shared meaning, how the act of building evolves into the act of belonging. On Mars, culture will not arrive as luggage from Earth, it will emerge from space itself, from the daily choreography of maintaining habitat, cultivating food, repairing domes, and drawing patterns of light across enclosed corridors. Architecture will become the first language of culture, the grammar through which a new society speaks. Every culture begins with construction. The first shelters of any civilization were not only technical responses but declarations of identity. This is where we are, and this is who we are. Vernacular villages demonstrated that building is always a social act. Each wall marks both a boundary and a bond. In space, this duality intensifies. A settlement on Mars will depend on cooperation for survival. Yet within that cooperation, a new symbolic order must emerge. Architecture will have to encode this order through plan, material, and rhythm, so that inhabitants recognize not only the utility of their structures, but their shared authorship. Culture, therefore, is not decoration layered upon architecture. It is architecture's invisible structure. The organization of space dictates how people encounter each other, how they celebrate, how they grieve, and how they teach. Vernacular builders on Earth achieved this instinctively, the courtyard as a social condenser, the veranda as a mediator between private and communal life, the square as a stage for ceremony. On Mars, such typologies must be reinvented under pressure, but with the same intention, to spatialize social life. A settlement that ignores this will remain a machine. One that embraces it may become a home. Isolation will demand deliberate cultural design. The distance from Earth erases inherited context. No ancestral street, no historic skyline, no memory embedded in stone. The architect's task will thus include fabricating memory itself. Materials, proportions, and sequences of movement must foster recognition and continuity. A corridor that echoes footsteps, a dome that filters light through patterned layers, a communal atrium where voices gather and amplify. Each gesture can recall the comfort of collective presence. Culture is sustained not by nostalgia, but by repetition. Architecture provides that repetition in spatial form. As the economy of the colony stabilizes, routine maintenance, the tightening of bolts, the cleaning of filters, the tending of hydroponic crops will become ritual. Work transforms into a ceremony when performed collectively and rhythmically. Vernacular societies long understood this. Harvests accompanied by song, construction marked by communal feasts. On Mars, the same principle applies. Architecture can choreograph such moments by shaping visibility and proximity, placing workshops around shared courtyards, aligning modules so that laborers glimpse one another through transparent panels, or designing maintenance zones that double as gathering spaces. When architecture frames work as participation rather than isolation, culture begins to form. Symbolism will follow soon after. Humans imbue spaces with meaning simply by inhabiting them. A hatch repeatedly used as the exit to expeditions will acquire ceremonial weight. A window facing Earth will become a shrine of distance. The architect can anticipate this symbolic drift, providing focal points that invite ritual without prescribing it. Vernacular ornamentation on Earth served the same function. It was not merely aesthetic embellishment, but a mnemonic device, recording collective stories in pattern and texture. On Mars, the digital equivalent might be programmable surfaces that display evolving mosaics of data and memory. A wall could pulse softly with the rhythm of oxygen circulation, reminding dwellers that life itself is a shared project. Craft will also regain significance. In high-tech environments, manual skill often seems obsolete, yet culture thrives on the tactile. Vernacular builders expressed identity through hands. The curvature of a clay vessel, the weave of a mat, the carving of a lintel and door. Martian construction will rely heavily on robotics, but opportunities for human craft must be preserved. Repairing printed walls, arranging interior vegetation, or assembling furniture from grown materials are acts through which individuals imprint personality on collective form. Architecture should anticipate such participation, modular systems open to modification, surfaces that welcome touch, spaces that reveal traces of care. A culture that cannot mark its own environment risks alienation. Ritual spaces will evolve naturally within the settlement. A central hall for communication, a garden dome for reflection, a threshold for departure. Each will acquire layers of meaning. The key lies in proportion and rhythm. Vernacular builders use geometry to mediate between human scale and cosmic order. Circular plans suggesting unity, axial alignments linking ground and sky. On Mars, geometry will still serve as a cultural metaphor. Circular communal halls may symbolize continuity. Radial layouts might express equality of access to resources. In this way, the plan itself becomes scripture. Light will play the role once reserved for ornament. With limited materials, illumination becomes the new medium of expression. The modulation of brightness, the temperature of hue, and the timing of cycles can evoke emotion and delineate social time. Morning work, evening rest, collective gatherings. Vernacular architecture always balanced light and shadow as a cultural language. Think of the filtered daylight of a riad, the flickering hearth of a rural house, the dim serenity of a Japanese engawa. On Mars, artificial lighting must replicate this poetics to sustain psychological well-being. Architecture thus curates both visibility and mood, translating cosmic harshness into a habitable atmosphere. Cultural identity also depends on sound. Vernacular spaces were rarely silent. They resonated with voices, tools, animals, wind, and water. In the void of Mars, acoustic design becomes a surrogate for nature. Architects must shape reverberation within domes and corridors so that sound maintains warmth without chaos. Even the hum of air circulation can be tuned to a comforting frequency. A settlement with good acoustics feels alive. One without becomes psychologically sterile. In this sense, the soundscape is part of the architecture's cultural program, a design of belonging through resonance. Every culture develops temporal architecture, structures that appear, transform, or vanish with events. Festivals, markets, and ceremonies once animated the courtyards of villages. In a Martian colony, temporal architecture may take the form of reconfigurable spaces that shift purpose across the calendar. An agricultural dome that hosts communal meals after harvest, or a maintenance hangar that opens for public gatherings during light seasons. This adaptability transforms practicality into celebration, turning the cycle of work into a calendar of meaning. Education will also find spatial form. As children or new settlers learn skills, their training environments will become places of initiation. Vernacular societies often tied learning to place, the workshop, the field, the hearth. On Mars, classrooms may merge with fabrication labs, reminding students that knowledge is always material. The layout of these spaces, visibility of tools, proximity to communal areas, will define the transmission of culture as much as textbooks do. Architecture, once again, becomes pedagogy. As decades pass, the colony's built environment will accumulate memory. Repair marks, patches of color, layered modifications, all will record habitation like strata in geology. Vernacular villages aged visibly, their patina serving as an archive. Mars should not fear aging, it should design for it. Walls that display maintenance history, floors that bear the footprints of countless routines, these will transform architecture into narrative. In the absence of natural erosion, designers may even simulate weathering to evoke continuity. Culture needs time to be made visible. Ultimately, culture in space will be measured not by what is imported, but by what is invented. The vernacular of Mars will arise from constraints, its rituals born of maintenance, its myths derived from machinery, its art shaped by survival. Architects must therefore act as anthropologists of the future, designing frameworks flexible enough to host unforeseen traditions. The goal is not to preserve Earth's cultures intact, but to provide spatial conditions where new ones can grow. In this light, architecture becomes both a medium and a memory of culture. Every corridor, dome, and garden will tell the story of collaboration. Every shared space will be an archive of collective intention. To build on Mars is to author a narrative of interdependence, written not in words but in walls. Culture, then, is not the opposite of technology. It is technology's emotional residue. The more complex our systems, the more necessary their translation into symbols and rituals. Vernacular builders always understood this balance. Every tool embedded in myth, every measurement sanctified by ceremony. The challenge for architects beyond Earth is to restore that harmony, ensuring that innovation carries meaning. As this new world matures, architecture will evolve from instrument to institution, from the mechanics of habitation to the art of identity. The dome that once protected life will become the temple of that life. The workshop that sustained the economy will become the museum of its ingenuity. In the end, the actual monument of the Martian settlement will not be a tower or a memorial, but the settlement itself, its pattern of spaces embodying the culture it nurtured. In the next episode, we will turn to space material, to the tactile and the tangible, to what we touch when we call something real. Culture gives architecture meaning, material gives it substance. Together they define how the vernacular village of Earth transforms into the living architecture of another world. This concludes Chapter 4 of Vernacular Architecture Beyond Earth, Culture Forming Design in Space. Thanks for listening. See you in the next episode.